So I don't know if you heard, but Steve Bruce has been sacked. Um, yeah, he's been sacked, and I just wanted to come on here and talk about, I guess, more vent really about the ensuing pile-on, which Newcastle fans have been exposed to in the 48 hours since it happened. People like Martin Samuel, Barry Glendinning, Ollie Holt talking about it being the saddest sacking this season, which I guess could be true, but when you consider that there's only been two, you could probably say pretty safely that remains to be seen. And I'd just like to be clear, I don't care at all. I don't care a little bit if Steve Bruce is a little bit sad. He's just been paid £8 million to not do his job anymore. Before that, he was paid really handsomely to make me sad pretty much every day. Me and thousands upon thousands of other Newcastle fans. He was paid really well to make us sad regularly. And people might say that, earning money doesn't constitute, abuse, and I would absolutely agree. Like, I would 100% agree with that it doesn't. But what I would ask someone to do is actually cite that abuse to me. Cite it, because a lot of it is based on exaggeration, conjecture, misinformation. We haven't been in the ground for the vast majority of his tenure as manager. He's not on social media, but the most important thing to remember is that he's publicly spoken about how fans have been kind to him. He's spoken about the hundreds of letters of support he's received. He's spoken about how he's received when he walks around the city. So I have to then start questioning about what the reason behind these stories. What's the reason behind them? And what I suspect is that it's a conveniently invented story for the media to drive clicks, to drive engagement. It's an easy headline for journalists to pick up. So I thought I would just help the lazy journalists, really, do a little bit of the work that they seemingly don't want to do, to scratch just a tiny bit beneath the surface of this. So when Bruce was sacked from Villa, he went to the press and he claimed abuse. When he was sacked from Sunderland, he went to the press and he claimed abuse. He claimed it was some of the worst he had ever received throughout his entire career, which suggests to me that this is a person who makes a habit of failure in managerial roles. And now when he gets sacked by Newcastle, he goes to the closest journalist to him and claims abuse. That journalist then in turn goes on TalkSport with every intention of making this pile-on happen and really provides a hell of a lot of claims which are really difficult to back up, I would say. So there's a pattern emerging here, isn't there? If you ask Villa fans, Sunderland fans, Sheffield Wednesday fans, Wigan fans and Newcastle fans what they feel and how they feel about Steve Bruce, you'll hear what almost sounds like a carbon copy of stories about mismanagement of teams, of laziness, of petty remarks. And so it's a typical tactic of a man who has made a habit over his career of using the press and weaponizing the press to deflect from poor performance. He's done it time and time again. He would rather lean on the press to deflect from his own shortcomings as a manager than work them out on the training ground. And that just speaks volumes about him as a manager. And so when you think about that and you think about the press eating up this rhetoric and this narrative of poor old Brucey and this pity party that's ensued, it actually makes sense that they would grab onto this story and run with it as they have, because the journalists are lazy as well. They're not willing to do the work, like Bruce isn't willing to do the work on the training ground. And it doesn't take much to scratch beneath the surface and actually come to understand what the truth of the matter is. And so I would say it's not a coincidence that local journalists in Newcastle paint a very different picture of who Steve Bruce is and what his time at Newcastle has been. They paint a completely different picture of what it is. And why is that? I would say reasonably that it's because they are the closest to the club. Like the fans, they go to every match. Like the fans, they watch every press conference. They're there for every snide remark he makes. They're there for every time he berates the fans, talks the club down, makes snide remarks about previous managers. We're here for every little bit of it. National journalists see a tiny sliver of this. And so they only chime in when it suits them. Whereas fans, local journalists chime in all the time because it's what we care about. So I just happen to feel that local journalists and fans are far better positioned to talk on this subject than national journalists are, and these talking heads, pundits online, whoever, whatever you want to call them, are not well positioned to comment on these matters because by their own admission most of the time, they don't watch us. They don't pay attention to us. They're all paying attention to us now, funnily enough, but they haven't for years. And so I don't really give these claims, I don't really give these people, I don't really think they're in a position to comment on it with any weight behind it. And so he's a poor manager who was out of his depth 2 decades ago. And I'll see what we're seeing now is a man with a bruised ego. His ability as a manager has been laid out clearly for everyone to see. We're 19th in the table. His stats are awful. He's statistically the worst Premier League manager of all time. It's completely reasonable that he's therefore sacked. And I've never seen such a ridiculous fuss made over something which is just so unspectacular. A manager had us in 19th without a win this season, has been sacked by a club who have new ownership. It happens in football. And we've seen people coming out, Ollie Holt again, saying Steve Bruce doesn't have any friends in the media. And it makes you laugh because, again, we see them every week, every other day we see them. Just the other day, Paul Scholes on the Overlap said he's obviously going to back Bruce here. Based on nothing else than their relationship. So when we're facing, that kind of bias, then I think it's reasonable to heed what the fans and the local journalists have to say. So no friends in the media. It's a shameful lie. That's all it is. That it's not even worth debating. It's a lie. It's well known that Steve Bruce has friends in the media. It's been known for a long time. It's part of the shtick of Steve Bruce. When he comes to your club as a manager, you expect it. And so don't piss on us and tell us it's raining, basically, is what I'm saying, because we see everything. We're engaged with this club every hour of every day. I know I am. National journalists see nothing. They chime in when it suits them. They don't care about being right. Media outlets, journalists, talking heads, who there are just no shortage of now, they don't care about being right. They care about being first. They care about shouting the loudest. And so, yeah, all I would say is I would rather that, you were angry about something that actually happened, because these claims haven't been backed up. They're tenuous, they're exaggerated, and if you were angry about something that actually happened, I could understand your point, but you're not. So I'm sorry to say, we're not the villains you're trying to make us out to be, as much as you want us to be. And yeah, away the lads.